Okay.
This is Live from the Table, the official podcast of the world-famous Comedy Cellar, coming at you on Sirius XM.
Oh, wait. I'll tell you something about that.
What's that?
Sirius XM is not going to carry our show anymore.
Okay.
Really?
Sirius is dropping us.
Really?
Yeah.
So we're
Why?
not effective when?
Maybe this week, because
Oh.
they've decided to go strictly comedy. They've had enough of genocide on the Comedy Channel to last them a lifetime.
That's hilarious.
And
Well, it was bound to happen. So can we at least get paid for the up through? I'll talk to Jenny. Look, things are tight, right? I'm sorry. I'm not.
Why?
You know?
But what if we start doing comedy episodes again?
I don't want to do that. No. They said they just want stand-up comedy. They just want stand-up.
Oh, so not even comedy podcasts?
No, not even comedy podcast. And he said he tried to on that channel. He's going to try to maybe get us on one of the other stations. Maybe I don't think that's
Okay, we'll talk about this off the air. But okay.
Okay, so I just say.
So you're fired, guys.
Okay. All right, so
tell you on the air.
So this episode won't go on serious. Okay, so this is Live from the Table, the official podcast of the world-famous Comedy Cellar.
Not going to.
No longer on Sirius, but still available as a podcast and on.
They said they still put us on demand on the Sirius app.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know how that affects
Try it
the
again.
intro.
Coming to you.
Well, but it's not
Live
coming at you.
and
Maybe
on
it's
the
coming
on
at
the
you.
Sirius.
And available on demand on Sirius and on YouTube, where you get to see our faces. This is Dan Naturman, as usual. I'm back in studio. I had a bit of a cold last week. Noam thought I should come anyway.
Of course. Who calls out sick?
I was really feeling like shit, and I would have zoomed in, but nobody wanted to do that. So,
Okay.
and also I would have gotten you sick, maybe.
I told him if he's really not feeling well to not come in.
I know you did.
Anyway, enough of that. We're here with Noam Dworman. He's the owner of the Comedy Cellar, rapidly becoming sort of a, I don't know if it's a public intellectual, a pundit, whatever you want to call him. He's making a name for himself slowly but surely.
Thank you, Dan.
You know, I think if he really went at it harder, he could make some noise, but he doesn't care because he's too old and too rich. We also are here with Periel Aschenbrand.
I'm more of a gadfly about town.
Okay.
Yeah.
But everybody knows him at this point. All the big names in that.
No, I had to double check. That's the word I wanted to use. I wanted to make sure I was using it correctly. Gadfly is like kind of like a annoying person who argues with people. You know,
It's
kind
exactly what you are.
of. Yes. Yeah. Actually, let me look up the definition. Gadfly is an annoying person, especially one who provokes others into action by criticism.
Okay, that seems to fit.
So I'm a gadfly.
Literally, is there a picture of you there? Because that's literally like.
No, can you talk up? Can you speak up?
Well-
No, can you turn up her mic, please?
That voice that you hear is our guest today, Batya Ungar-Sargon. She's back on the podcast. She's been here before. She's a opinion editor at Newsweek, former opinion editor at The Forward, and the author of two books, the most recent of which, Second Class,
Yeah.
How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women. And we discussed that, I think, a bit last time.
Good, yeah.
But I guess today we're going to discuss the election, I guess.
Of course.
I don't know.
You know, there's an election coming up.
Yeah.
Periel's like, when is the election? Is it Tuesday? I'm like, of course it's Tuesday, you idiot. She's like she doesn't even know that the election day is Tuesday.
Well, no, you don't vote, right? So you're going to continue that tradition?
No. He's voting.
Oh, you're voting this time?
I don't think I'm.
You're voting?
I don't think so.
He's voting.
I'm not
All right.
voting. I might abstain for the first time ever.
You're allowed. He has to because he's convinced that one of the candidates would be a better president. So
I'm
he
not.
has to
I'm
But
vote.
not
he's wrong.
convinced. I was drunk last night. We were drunk, and we went out to Noble last night. Me and Juanita and Batya and Moynihan and some other people I can't mention. And we had fun, right?
It was a good time.
So
Yeah.
you guys made up?
You didn't have fun?
I literally just said it was a good time.
Yeah, but you paused, and it was almost like a perfunctory.
He's a compliment vampire. Have you noticed
No,
this?
I wasn't asking for.
One of the funniest lines.
I don't want to compliment.
Dan, do you agree?
I wanted you to have fun.
This is one of my pet peeves. Is there are people who are compliment vampires. Like they demand endless amounts of like, support and compliments and affirmations, but then they give nothing in return. It's like
Can you
Periel,
come
am I
back
right?
every show?
Am I right? Is this not like a central component of Noam's character?
How's that vamp?
I think Noam is fairly generous with his compliments, to be honest.
you're good at
I
something.
hate to to contradict our guest, but Noam oftentimes will like if you can't shut up about Coleman or Michael Moynihan.
That's true.
And he has great things to say about Batya as well.
Anyway, so all right. So let's. What do you want? Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we get to the election?
No, go ahead.
So last time we had Batya on the show, I asked her who she was going to vote for, and she didn't know who she was going to vote for. Everything. I don't know if she was telling the truth back then, but she said she didn't know. Have you changed your mind? Are you ready to make a?
Yeah, I said I was undecided, and that was true at the time. I was undecided. I believe had Kamala come out yet when I was on, or was it still Biden?
I don't remember.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Certainly when Kamala first came out the gate.
Yeah, I think it was still Biden. It was still Biden.
It was still Biden?
Yeah.
No, I was undecided at the time. I'm not undecided anymore. I got to tell you a story, though, about something that just happened to me on the way over here. I was in a cab, and the driver didn't want to take me at first, and then he was like, because he was getting ready to order Uber Eats, and he had this coupon, and he was very excited to use it. So he didn't. But then I was running late, and I was like, oh, please. And he was like, oh, okay, fine. So again, and he gave me this big, did me this big favor, and then he said, so what time does the show start? And I was like, oh, I'm not going to a show at the Comedy Cellar. I'm going to be, to do, an interview. And then he said, oh, who are you interviewing? And I was like, no, anyway.
I'm the subject
exactly.
of the interview.
So then he said, oh, well, what are you going to talk about? Politics? I said, yeah. And he was like, oh, the election? I said, yeah. And he said, who are you voting for? Are you Democrat or Republican? I said, well, who are you voting for? Are you Democrat or Republican? And he had like a slight accent. I couldn't quite place it yet. And he went, I'm a Republican, man, for the first time. And I was like, really? So you're voting for Trump? He's like, yeah. What about you? And I was like, yeah, me too. First time Republican. And he went, yeah, me and all my friends. And I was like, where are you from, dude? And he's like, I'm from Afghanistan. And Trump's going to stop the war. And because Trump doesn't care about wars. He doesn't like wars. He likes making money. And I was like, do you think he's going to flip New York? And he was like, write it down. Your taxi driver told you at 8:22 p.m. on October 30th, Trump's going to flip New York. Now, I don't know if he's right about that.
Wow.
But
What war is he
I
gonna
have
stop?
had
The war in Gaza?
He's going to stop all the wars. But I have had conversations like this with young men of color across the country, like black men, Hispanic men, Muslim men. Like you wouldn't think, right, from the narrative we're told that like the far left is like never going to vote for a Republican because the Republicans support Israel and they don't. Like all of the narratives that we've been told have been like totally scrambled because the real story is the class story. And young men of color want to make a good living and they want jobs and they're looking at who is the person who is going to create an economy that makes them more likely to achieve the American dream for themselves and their families. And it's pretty obvious who that is. He then started saying like a lot of mean things about Kamala Harris, which I won't repeat because I personally admire her a lot. I think given what she was given by God, she's done a lot. Made
she's
it
an
very far.
overachiever because she's an idiot.
She's made it really far with the the toolkit that she
more
was
of a
given.
compliment vampire, actually. But that's like the undead, like this.
No, I truly admire. First of all, I think she's great looking. I really do. I hope we can all agree about that.
Listen, I'm married. I'm married to someone who could be her daughter.
I guess she's okay.
What are you guys talking about?
Kamala Harris's looks
What did you say? You married to somebody who could what?
could be her. Like my wife is half Indian. Kamala's half Indian. They look like
They look related.
They do not look related at all.
Kamala looks like a lot of my wife's family.
Do you think that these men from other countries that are voting for Trump, it's because some of these countries are countries where a woman couldn't be in power, and so that's influencing them?
I mean, actually, maybe this guy, because Afghanistan obviously is a very patriarchal society, but like certainly I don't think that's a factor for black men or Hispanic men. I think it's really just like the economy. Trump, like.
All right, let's get you on record. What percentage of the black male vote do you actually think this dude is going to get?
I think it will be between 35%.
Really?
What do they usually get, the Republicans?
10%?
Yeah.
No, Trump got 18% of black men in 2020.
He did?
So, yeah.
Okay.
I think there's
he's
a
going
very
to
good
basically
chance
double
he'll
that?
get, yeah. He doubled it. So in 2016, he got 8% of the black male vote. And then in 2020, he got 18% of the black male vote. This round, he has polled as high as 40% of black men.
Wow.
And
So he might go from high to double high.
Let's try to keep the podcast understandable to the
To the goyim.
to the people, to the majority of Americans that aren't Jewish.
And what about black women?
I think he's going to do better than he did last time, but not as much as black men. You have to understand, again, this entire election has mapped the gender divide onto the class divide. So in the black community, as in the rest of America, women are now much more likely to have a college degree. And that is going to be the number one predictor for whether somebody votes for a Democrat or for a Republican at this point.
And what about Hispanics? Now, what do you think the impact's going to be? There's so much we have to get to everything that's been happening, but what do you see as the impact of the garbage joke, Tony Hinchcliffe garbage joke?
So the joke
Hispanics.
was that, this comic said he said to the audience at Madison Square Garden at a Trump rally, I don't know if you know this, but there's a big island of garbage floating in the ocean. I think it's called Puerto Rico, right?
And that was based on an actual story about a garbage island. I mean, the premise for that joke, I assume,
This is
was
why it's a terrible joke, because the punchline was based on a piece of information most people don't have, which is that there's a big garbage problem in Puerto Rico. Unlike the Jewish joke, which was hysterical, because it was based on a stereotype we all have access to, which is that Jews are cheap, right?
What was the joke of the Jewish joke?
So the Jewish joke was hilarious, actually. I laughed out loud. So he said, when it comes to the Middle East, I think we all agree we just want them to get their stuff together.
Just settle it already.
Just settle it already. He goes, best of 3 wins. Rocks, paper, scissor. We know the Muslims, they're always going to pick that rock. And we know the Jews, they don't want to let go of that paper. It's a great joke. Like, I really laughed. Yeah. Can we all agree that that's a really
That's
funny
pretty
joke?
good.
Then I was thinking to myself, how come I was offended by the Puerto Rico joke, but I laughed at the joke about my people? Like, does that make me a cuck? Like,
But also, he didn't call basically your whole entire group of people garbage. I mean, it's a big difference between Jews are a little frugal and you're garbage.
Now, what happened next was really interesting. The next night, or 2 nights later, Donald Trump went on Hannity, and he did something I've never seen him do before. He basically apologized. He said, I don't know why that guy was there. I didn't invite him. I didn't know he was going to be there. I didn't know what he was going to say. I have a wonderful relationship with Puerto Ricans. He said it soberly. You could tell he was very rattled.
I'm sure he's pissed.
Really pissed. And then the next day, he gave another press conference that seemed sort of like a do-over of the Madison Square Garden event, almost like he had to regain control. And he was extremely sober-minded in that second press conference. Like, he's now in the zone that his campaign has wanted him to be in, I think, for the whole campaign, which is extremely goal-oriented, extremely serious, paying very close attention. So Joe Biden then went on to say he had his own gaffe. He said, somebody asked him what he thought about this Tony joke about the floating garbage, and Joe Biden then said, the only garbage I see is his followers, meaning Donald Trump's his supporters. And obviously this is worse than the deplorables moment. I mean, this is like that was a really, really offensive thing to say. And what Donald Trump did was he hired a garbage truck, he put the Trump logo on it, and he drove up to his next rally in this garbage truck, wearing the way that he did the McDonald's stunt. So he was wearing his white shirt and his red tie with a, yellow flak vest over it, and then waving out of it and looking the way he looked at the McDonald's event, like very proud to be in this kind of working class situation, whatever, cosplay, whatever you want to call it. So I think that he, has understood the moment. He's really understood the assignment, and he's very focused right now. I can't tell how big of an impact that joke is going to have. I think it was offensive. But then again, working class people don't get offended the way that we do about
let me tell you that.
Language like that.
First of all, my wife, Juanita, she was fine with the joke.
Right.
I think, sweetheart, what are you talking about? She said, it's fine. They have a lot of garbage in Puerto Rico. Like, all right, maybe, she's been living the high life for a while. Maybe she's not.
But she had the context for it to actually land as a punchline.
She claims to have had the context. Yeah, I've not. And then, but then I asked. We have 2 Puerto Rican servers. Can we still say servers? 2 Puerto Rican servers in the place. One
in the olive tree.
In the olive tree, and both of them were like, "Yeah, I thought it was funny." I'm like, wait, you thought it was funny? Like, yeah, I thought it was funny.
What about Nicholas,
My
your
son,
stepson?
I don't even think he plays video games all day.
Okay.
Um, but I think there's something to what you're saying, that we white people are very precious about this and kind of protective, and they're a little more real hardy about this, a little more robust.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if these three people, like, they do work in a comedy clubs, and maybe they're used to that culture.
Well, like, Dan, as a comic, how did you evaluate that joke?
The garbage joke?
Yeah.
Well, again, what was it based on, like one of these garbage barges or something? Like,
Oh, there's probably a big trash pickup collection issue in Puerto
okay,
Rico.
okay.
It's also, there's a geological problem where, like, a lot of trash just, like, washes up on the shores. I have now educated myself.
Yeah, I wouldn't qualify it as a particularly clever joke.
I think it's pretty far-fetched that Trump had no idea that this comic was going to get on.
See, this is what gets me about you. Of course, he had no idea.
Why would he have? How could he be clued out of it? You're getting up at. Nobody gave him a set list. Nobody gave him a run of show.
Well, so what we know about that is actually he did run his jokes by somebody, and they actually crossed some jokes out,
Yeah.
and then he did this joke ad-libbed.
Oh, so this joke was not in
This
the...
joke was not in the thing.
Right, they cut off... he wanted to call Kamala the C word,
Yeah,
and
like
then they...
communist, yeah.
No.
Well, I think that's the...
That was the joke.
Oh,
I
that's
think
the
that's the
joke.
joke, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. And then they cut that out, and...
And by the way, this is not what gets you about me.
Yes, yes, because it's so utterly naive. Like you hate this guy so much, you think that he can't even... Like, you think he'd be like, yeah, go out there and tell that joke about the Puerto Ricans.
Yeah,
and
he's
garbage.
probably like, yeah, that's funny.
That'll be great for me. Like, I've spent 9 years trying to win these people over on the precipice of a historic change of heart. Let me call them garbage. Yeah, I'm sure, there's no way he didn't know
he's
that.
also saying that he has this great relationship with Puerto Rico. And last time I checked, like, he was like tossing out rolls of paper towel in the middle of like an emergency crisis, and thought that was a good idea too.
I think that was another thing that did not actually offend the people. It offended, like, MSNBC and CNN hosts.
Okay, well,
She's like a...
she's like a what?
You're like a living version. I don't know. You're like a spirit. That's you're a spirit animal of the entire left woke culture. What's in Harry Potter? What are those things? I wish I could remember the name. There's like a spirit thing. It's
Like
a
a
Harry
compliment vampire?
Potter. Yeah, like a compliment vampire. Anyway,
I'm so glad I gave that to you.
I love that.
so you're going to vote for Donald Trump.
Yes, and I think you should too.
Did you vote for him the past couple
No,
times?
no, and it'll be my first time voting for a Republican.
Oh, you voted for the Democrat, or you voted for a third party?
No, I voted for Biden.
Okay.
Yeah, Biden.
Now-
And Hillary?
Clinton, yeah.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger today tweeted out an endorsement of Kamala Harris, and he wrote one paragraph. I want to put it to you, and you can answer. He says, "Can you do an Arnold Schwarzenegger imitation?
Well, everybody can do it. I mean, mine's not particularly good, but
You want to read it?
Yeah,
well, I'm not an impressionist, but I can do a basic. What a candidate who won't respect your vote unless it is for him. That sounds more like Esty.
That doesn't sound like anything like that.
Yeah, you're right. But I'm under pressure.
Danny, can you do it?
I can't do impressions.
Also, it's not something that, like, if I was going to do an impression of Schwarzenegger,
Gotcha.
it would be him saying something Schwarzenegger-esque.
It's not a tumor.
Yeah, like it's not a tumor. I'd be mad.
But a candidate who
Anyway, go
won't
ahead.
respect your vote unless it's for him, a candidate who will send his followers to storm. I said, can you say storm the Capitol?
Oh, the Capitol.
Storm the Capitol. who will send his followers to storm the Capitol while he watches with a Diet Coke. A candidate who has shown no ability to work to pass any policy besides a tax cut that helped his donors and other rich people like me, but helped no one else.
Does
A
it really
can-
say like me?
It says like me, yeah. A candidate who thinks Americans who disagree with him are the bigger enemies than China, Russia, or North Korea. That won't solve our problems. So he's basically referencing January 6th, the way he sat back and did nothing, that he wasn't very skillful at passing legislation, but except when it served his rich cronies' purposes.
I think, the side that's lying is the side that's losing. And, like, every single one of their attacks on him is a lie. Like, there's a lot to criticize Donald Trump over, and they somehow seem to miss the mark or overshoot the mark in every single one of their criticisms. Like, the idea that he, passed no meaningful legislation. He showed up in a country where there was a handshake agreement between left and right that we should have free trade and a very lax border. And he simply did away with both of those things and became the first president in 60 years to shrink the wealth gap. So in 2019, the bottom 25% of wage earners saw a 4.5% wage increase, and the top 25% only saw a 2.9% wage increase.
Now, do you actually have any confidence that he did that? There's so much correlation that is taken for causation with presidents, but economies don't turn around overnight. Very often,
No, it took 3 years. This is 2019.
So what do you think he did?
I think he closed the border, so he limited the supply of labor, which of course is going to immediately have an impact on the wages of the working class.
Is there data that implies that indicates that the limit of the supply of labor led to higher wages?
Of course.
There is?
And also tariffs, reshoring manufacturing, the trade war with China. He imposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, which immediately protected the wages of people who work in steel and aluminum. It was like a buoying effect to working class wages, people who work at the bottom of the income distribution. It's so amazing that people say agriculture, janitorial services, service industry jobs are jobs Americans won't do. The vast majority of people employed in all of those industries are native-born Americans. It's just that where we live,
it's not.
It's not. So, of course, Americans are willing to do those jobs for good wages. The problem is that they don't pay good wages because we've imported 15% of our country now from other countries to do those jobs for much less. When they talk about the tax cuts that he gave, yeah, he gave tax cuts and rich people got tax cuts. But as a percentage, the middle class and the working class got double digits more of a percentage in terms of a tax cut, 15 to 25%. That's what they remember. They don't remember that the billionaire who got a 1% or a 5% tax cut, overall, of course, there's more money there. They remember that they got a 15% tax cut. So the idea that this was a tax cut for the rich, yeah, rich people got tax cuts, but so did the middle class and the working class, and that means a lot to them. They always have to overstate everything. Yeah, January 6th sucked. It sucked. But he did say peacefully protest. He did say that peacefully and patriotically. And I agree with you, Noam. I think you've made the case really powerfully that it's kind of inconceivable that he would have wanted any kind of violence. Like there was no end game for him if it did end up in violence. Did he cover himself in glory on that day? No. Election denial. Hillary Clinton is still denying the fact that she lost the election. She literally thinks Putin got Trump elected. And in 2018, they did a survey. They found that 66% of Democrats believed that Putin had changed the vote tallies. This is literally exactly what Republicans believe about 2020. Democrats believed it when they lost, because losing freaking sucks. No one wants to lose, and no one wants to admit that they lost because they ran a shitty campaign. So I just think that it's like, if they have to lie about him to make their case, that's really fishy. It means that they can't actually win the case on the policy. And meanwhile, 98% of what he accuses Kamala of is true. She was the border czar. She did.
No, she was not the border czar.
Of course, she was the border czar.
I looked into it. She wasn't the border czar. We could take it off. We could take it up offline.
She was put in charge of immigration as a topic.
Yeah, but there was even stories at the time that they were uncomfortable with the term border czar because they saw it was not accurate and there was a political risk to it. I can send it to you. But listen, whether she was or she wasn't, we know she didn't do a goddamn thing. She didn't. It's not as if she tried to handle the border and failed.
But, okay, do you know what?
They gave her a cosmetic. They gave her a title. It was never real.
Fine.
She didn't actually fail.
The more important question is,
if they had given it to her, I'm sure she would have failed. But I don't think
the more important question is she likely to fire Alejandro Mayorkas or not? The person who has basically been the person to decriminalize illegal border crossing, partner with the cartels to supply low-wage labor and child laborers to American corporations. She would never fire him because Democrats don't fire people.
So, Danny, bring up. You have that PNG file that I sent you.
Yes.
So this is about. I looked up the border stuff today. I mean, and then I want to talk about this where I disagree with you, but. Danny, is his first day on the job? I don't know. You're not doing so good there.
Sorry.
You got it?
Yep.
No, okay. This is a bar graph of illegal crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border. Can you zoom in on it? Yeah, that's good. And it is striking. I mean, it's striking that Biden takes over in 2021, and it immediately, I mean, it looks basically double from 2019 and looks almost quadruple from 2018, right?
No, this was a campaign promise. He said he was going to decriminalize illegal border crossing. That was asked at a Democratic debate in 2019. While the Democrats, there were 15 Democrats on the stage, and the question from, I think it was CNN, was, would you decriminalize illegal border crossing?
Trump said no.
No, I'm saying at the Democratic.
At the debate.
The Democratic primary. So you have Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris.
At that debate, Biden was the only one who said he wouldn't decriminalize.
No, Biden went like this.
Oh, he did? Like
yes.
Tried to have both ways?
Yeah, exactly.
So just in case people aren't watching, so in 2017, this is from the Washington Post, is something a little bit over maybe 300,000 illegal border crossings. By 2018, it looks like around 500,000. 2019 jumps up. I don't know if that's the result of COVID or anything, but by 2022, it's up to 2.2 million. I mean, this is a total failure of government.
No, that's what I'm trying to tell you. This is a successful implementation of a policy to open the border. That's what this looks like.
And let's add to it. And
this was not a mistake.
And while it was happening, they told us it wasn't happening. They told us it was seasonal. They told us it always goes up around this time of year, seasonal. And there was every lie you could imagine.
No, but you know what? Alejandro Mayorkas told the truth. When did he tell the truth?
Yeah, you can take that. I don't know if you've been showing us or them, Danny, but you can take that. I mean, I hope they can see us again. Go ahead.
He would get hauled before Congress and before the Senate by the Republicans. And what happens in these hearings now is because it's so bifurcated by party.
Jewish, by the way. Go ahead.
Yes.
Mayorkas, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. We just like to note the Jews. Go ahead.
The Democrats try, when they have one of their people, they try to throw them softballs. And so the softball Mayorkas would get from the Democratic senators and congresspeople was, but, Secretary Mayorkas, isn't it the case that our corporations need workers? And he would then get very serious and he would say, Senator, our corporations are desperate for workers. And that's when he was telling the truth. I don't buy the whole, they're trying to dilute your vote. I don't think that the Democrats are importing people because they want them to vote Democrat. I mean, obviously the trend is against that, but also I don't buy that conspiracy theory. I think they want them to stay illegal and keep working for them for slave wages.
You believe that conspiracy theory?
It's not a conspiracy theory. That's literally what's happening. Meatpacking used to be the job to have. Great wages, great working conditions.
It is a conspiracy theory.
It is now peopled by teenagers who have been raped multiple times in the Darien Gap. That is who is packing our meat, thanks to Alejandro Mayorkas.
Wait.
Who's been raped?
Just understand this. The Democratic congressmen are doing the bidding of the captains of industry, as it were. And it's the captains of industry who want this permanently illegal class to work for them.
It's also regular people, like people who have jobs in the knowledge industry who make a bunch of money and have very little time to clean their own homes and do their own landscaping and raise their own children. They want to go to restaurants and they want to drink wine and they don't want it to be, to cost a lot of money. Like everyone in the top 20% is benefiting immensely from the slave caste. It's putting money in their pockets. It's an upward transfer of wealth from the Americans. They would have had to pay more to the slave caste, who they could pay very little, who are enslaved to the cartels because that's who got them here. Like, this is not a conspiracy. This is literally, they get a bracelet by the cartels when they cross the Darien Gap, and it's color-coded based on how much money they owe them. And they know where their family is. So they send teenagers over here. The girls all get raped on the way. This has been totally documented, if they make it at all. And then they are enslaved to the most murderous terrorist organizations. And this has all been sanctioned by Alejandro Mayorkas and the Biden administration because they realized that this is how they were going to get inflation down, is by putting a stop to the rising working class wages that the Donald Trump economy had created. And so they thought, wow, we really have to, that's how we're going to, nail this soft landing. because the only place it can come out of is the working class wages. It's not a conspiracy theory, Noam. That's just what happened.
All right. Well, I don't agree with you on that. But let's talk about other reasons to vote for or against Trump. So let me start by actually. Can you clip up that video, Danny? Don't play it yet. The first one I sent you. It's in a Twitter.
Wrong one.
It's in a tweet. So yeah, that one. Don't. But when you show that, I don't want to cut us off yet.
By the way, that guy is the best Twitter follow.
I
love that
I
guy.
communicate with him all the time.
He's my spirit animal.
He's actually the guy who made me famous because he's the guy who clipped out the Phil Bump interview.
Who's Phil Bump?
Phil Bump that's how our most viral thing ever was Phil Bump, an interview I did with Phil Bump about the Devon Archer testimony.
Oh.
And it got millions of various views. And he was the guy who watched the interview and clipped it out where Phil Bump walks off. I've never met him.
He's anonymous. You know who?
He's anonymous.
Yeah, he's anonymous, but I think he's somebody. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But he's very smart. But he's total maggot out. He's more.
He's not MAGA. No, he's never. He's always very. He doesn't love Trump, but he really hates.
He's not crazy about Israel either.
I know, but
No, it's fine, of course.
We love that about him,
Yes,
Noam.
yes.
We love to have people who we agree with on everything else, who we respect,
He's one of my best friends on Twitter. We have a whole DM thing all the time. Okay. So listen, and I was supposed to meet him one time. Anyway, listen. So I wrote in 2016 where a friend of mine said that he says he'll be fine. He'll have smart people around him. And this was my answer to my friend. I found it today. I don't totally disagree with you, but there's also a chance of a total debacle. Smart people are great if he'll listen. There's something unhinged about him. It's a ridiculousness of contradictory statements, self-destructive actions, and an inability to focus on his goals over his emotions, which somehow seem less unforgivable in a presidential candidate than it would be in a low-level restaurant manager. He seems unable to control his actions to comport with his own obvious self-interest. This is what I wrote about Trump at the time. I don't know if you could take that all in. But it was right after he won the nomination, and the next day he was out there saying that Ted Cruz's father had killed Kennedy. Do you remember that? But I identified a lot of correct things here. I said he won't listen to the people around him. He cannot control his emotions. He's erratic. And as my point was, if I was going to hire a manager at the Olive Tree, I would never hire somebody like that. So why do I think he can be in charge of the presidency? And I have a lot to say, but we did see the shit hit the fan one time. That was during COVID. And he was terrible. In the end, I think we have to admit that it didn't matter, kind of, because every country, COVID ran through basically the entire planet, and everything we worried about, a lot of it was uninformed, and in a certain way, his gut was right about a certain thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like COVID is the example that proves it's just a perfect example for. Okay, you finish.
But I think there's a lot of luck there. So DeSantis also made a lot of good decisions, but he was very, very analytical, and he had the monoclonal antibodies going to the old people, and he made sure to protect the old age homes, and he had the vaccine going here, and he kept the economy going by letting young people go out, and he had it really down. Trump didn't want to be bothered with any analysis.
Trump was caught between his instinct, which was to protect the economy, and what the experts were saying, which was that millions and millions of people are going to die if you do that. And he ended up leaning harder on the experts, which is exactly what you would have predicted he wouldn't have done. That's why it was so haphazard, because his instinct was leaning towards, there's no way to sort of save this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, which turned out to be true, by the way. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't fully commit to we're just going to protect the economy the way that Sweden did. He just could, because he was listening to Fauci and the experts. So it's exactly the opposite of what you would have predicted. But I would defend him ignoring the experts even more. You don't want him for a manager of your restaurant. You want him to be the executive of this country. And what that entails right now, I mean, you agree that this country is not in a good place, that people don't feel that the democratic norms are working in their interests, that people don't feel heard, that on every single issue, there is consensus among 65% of the Americans, and somehow the law is always on the other side of it. Like, in a moment like that, you do not need somebody who's really good at listening to the experts, because the experts got us here. The experts got us into this mess, and they will not admit it. You need a bulldozer. You need somebody who says, I have an instinct about how to reorganize the economy from the perspective of someone who actually really admires people who work at McDonald's, who would actually really love to put on that apron over my tie and show that this is a job to be proud of, who actually thinks garbage men deserve respect, and actually thinks linemen deserve respect, and actually think truck drivers deserve respect. Like, how do we reorganize an economy around the idea that people who work in the service industry deserve respect? And he actually came up with an idea for how to do that actually worked. And it was an idea that the economists across the board
You have drunk the Kool-Aid on this guy.
You don't think that all
you
of
have
that...
to actually respond. You can't just like insult me out of this. You have to actually respond
I will,
to
of course.
the arguments.
Yeah, I will. Of course, I'll respond. You know me better than that. I'll
But this is
respond.
not Kool-Aid.
I'm a vampire for responding.
I'm
You don't-
making
wait a
an
second.
argument.
But
I'm
don't
gonna-
you
I'm
think...
gonna- I'm gonna.
But I'm saying it's not Kool-Aid. It's an argument.
Okay, I withdraw. Let the record show I withdraw the Kool-Aid, Your Honor.
I did not want to become convinced of
Tell the jury, stricken from the record. Go ahead. I'm gonna answer.
You don't think that all of that is just a total performance? Like, everybody who has ever worked for Trump or he's done a real estate deal with, including a lot of Republicans who worked with him for many years who are quote unquote respectable Republicans, have all said, like, this guy has no integrity. He will do or say anything. Like, the fact that he can put his name on a garbage truck or put on an apron from McDonald's and like go put on this show is like, I mean, I don't know. Like, am I buying that? Like,
It's not, but he created an economy. Like, it's not, he put money in people's pockets. That's why they love him. They love him because they feel, working class people, struggling people feel like he loves them and that it's not a show. I don't care what, like, oh yeah, I'm pretty convinced that he pissed off all of the elites whose expertise he ignored and whose, 40-year handshake agreement to sell out the working class he overturned. Like, of course they hate him. They should hate him. Right. We should all be on the side of the people that those people hate, because they really sold out this country.
So let me tell you why I call it Kool-Aid. First of all, there's just so many examples of him being so disrespectful to people, including John McCain making fun and getting captured and things like this. It's hard for me to see him as with this deep respect for the working man, although I would have to acknowledge that he's comfortable with them in a way that elites are not. So it's a mixed bag. Like, just in my gut, I think he's an extremely disrespectful person. But you're right. He does seem to, he's gregarious, and he does seem to enjoy being around the blue collar people, and he's good at that.
Well, he did. I mean, we grew up in the same neighborhood, so like, I think that when you're from Queens and you've grown up in Queens, and I mean, that's not surprising.
Well, but it's a common touch. He has a certain common touch.
Okay.
That like Hillary Clinton.
But what is the theory for why?
I'm gonna get the answer.
No, but I want, because what is the theory for why he imposed tariffs, started a trade war with China, and closed the border when the rich people on both sides were screaming at him not to do this? Like, every person who...
He has always been enamored with these issues. He hired Peter Navarro, who's like the one economist in the world who believes that tariffs are a good thing.
I'm saying, if he doesn't care about anyone and it's a show, why did he do that?
No, I didn't say he doesn't care about anyone. It's a show. I actually have defended Trump many times. I think Trump does care about the country, and I think Trump does believe he believes probably that threatening tariffs. I would guess that he would say, listen, ideally free trade would be awesome, but we're getting killed in this trade. And it's not free and it's not fair. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I go to Japan, there's not a single American car on the road. So threatening tariffs at minimum is a good bludgeon to get the other side to start making
Right.
accommodations.
So, Periel, from your point
Wait,
of view,
this is a man who always thinks about everything in terms of what's my leverage. There's even been recordings of him where he said, well, what's my leverage about that? Where's my leverage on that? He understands that you can't get anything unless you have leverage. As I've said, negotiating without leverage is begging. You go to another country, say, I wish you'd be more helpful to us on trade policies. That's begging them to do something. You say, unless you do something, we're going to impose a 10% tariff. Now you have leverage. So I think he does see that. But I also do think that he thinks that some degree of tariffs would be beneficial. And I will even go further in saying I'm not convinced just because there's a certain base rate discount I have of all experts. They're never quite right. If they tell us tariffs are 100% wrong, generally there'll be some benefits to tariffs if they're moderate. I don't want to talk too long, but one of the things I always think about is if you put a 5% tariff on Chinese goods, I don't know if it'll really raise the price of the Chinese goods by 5%. They may lower their price by 5% to stay even because there is always some give in the price people are charging. So it's complicated. But
aren't you both kind of admitting, like, why would he care about the U.S. getting a better deal in the global economy if he doesn't care about this country beyond his own economic interests?
Who said he doesn't care about the country?
Well, so Periel's saying it's all a show. So I'm saying,
No,
like,
I didn't say no. I said that I think that, going and putting on like a McDonald's vest is a performance.
But do you think he cares about the country?
I mean, look, I don't know what he cares about. I mean, I think
Do you think
that
Kamala Harris cares about the country? We should get into this because
look,
there is a go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, there's this utter hypocrisy where they say Trump is transactional, Trump is this, Trump doesn't care, and yet not only does she flip flop on every single issue according to what's advantageous to her, but she also doesn't even tell us what she thinks. Building the wall was the signature issue that liberals used to call Donald Trump a racist. That was a substitute for Donald Trump's racism. He wants to build a wall. It was all we spoke about. And here we are 9 years later. And if you ask Kamala Harris, what do you think about the wall? She will duck the question. She will not
It's
tell
worse
you.
than that. Last night in her speech, she said, we have to deport people. I thought that was evidence of his racism.
Yes.
By the way,
Obama always deported also.
sorry. I mean, your question was: is if Trump doesn't care about the working class, why would he enact these policies? Of course, we don't. I mean, I suppose part of the reason is because it's good for him, because it's good for getting reelected, or it's good for him getting elected, or it's good for his legacy. Of course, we really don't know if he really cares in his heart, and maybe we shouldn't care. We're voting for the policies that
Right.
we either agree with or disagree
right.
with, whether he cares,
That's a good point.
sincerely or
That's
not.
a good point, yeah.
So, as I said, building the wall was Exhibit A of Trump's racism circa 2016. And that they don't have an answer to that now. It's really, they care about the country. All they care about is getting elected, right? He's way more consistent than they are. But the other problem is, and this is where I could begin to make the case. So just getting back to the erratic thing, I just want to say, I just can't imagine if this shit were to hit the fan. I do respect the madman theory. I think the bad actors in the world are going to be way more cautious around Donald Trump than they definitely will be around Kamala Harris, who they know has no appetite for any kind of military action. However, if the shit should hit the fan, some miscalculation, I cannot picture Donald Trump sitting and carefully weighing the chessboard of an international crisis. I can't picture him doing it. And I do think we have to respect that when 40 out of X number of generals think this guy should never be given the keys again. And by the way, this has become a real argument. You've heard it.
Yes.
But I was the very first person to make this argument like 2 years ago when people would be defending Trump. I said, listen, you got to respect the fact when everybody who works for somebody, not Democrats, Republicans, people who came into the administration because they wanted to get behind him and his policies, when every single one of them leaves and says, listen, don't ever let that guy be in charge again, I can't just say, oh, that's just nonsense. Oh, it's just a bunch of elites, blah, blah, blah.
It's not a bunch of elites. It's literally the warmonger class, and he hates war.
Well,
He's the first American president to launch 0 new wars. You think this shit didn't almost hit the fan when he was president? Of course it did. There's a lot going on that like we don't know about because he did a good job taking care of it. And what do you call Hamas attacking Israel? Like that's the shit hitting the fan and Biden screwing the pooch. What do you call Putin invading Ukraine? That is the shit hitting the fan and Biden screwing the pooch. On both of those fronts, it's obvious.
Yeah, wait.
It is obvious.
Nothing I'm saying is
The
to
things
indicate
would have
that
been-
she'd be better at this stuff. I'm just saying him.
So here's the question: what happens with Israel under Trump, and what happens with Israel under Harris? What happens with the anti-Semitism that is gone just completely haywire and rabid?
Can we get to that in this way? I want to get to that. So I made this argument to you last night, but I want to go through because it is the argument for Trump. Trump, because he is such a huge figure, becomes the personification or like the anthropomorphization of everything that is bad that we hate. He becomes the fascist. He becomes the guy who wants to deport everybody. But the left, if you look at what we've had to live through the last 10 years, and I kind of took some notes on it, but you can all add to it. All the people whose lives were ruined, all the double standards. We have them today. Like Louis C.K. still can't go into a restaurant, but Doug Emhoff can just smack his girlfriend around, and nobody cares about these things, right? The obsession with race, actually let me look where the notes are. The indoctrination of our kids. You dealt with it too. Our kids in schools. The giving out of COVID vaccine, the attempt to give out COVID vaccines according to race, the attempt to give out Paxlovid according to race, the giving out of actually relief to restaurants according to race, the self-censorship, the bending of science according to politics.
Can I summarize what you're saying in a sharp way?
Yeah, please be sharp. Go ahead.
Like our institutions have proven very good at containing whatever chaotic threat Donald Trump poses to our institutions. They have proven the opposite when it comes to the left. They are the handmaidens of the left's attempts to appropriate our institutions for these nefarious, racist policies. And the point being,
you're taking off my point. I'm almost there. Almost there. To add to it, the atmosphere on college campuses where people tear down posters of Jewish hostages, babies. And not only they do that, but they do it with pride and they share it with their friends. All of this terrible situation that we've had in the last 8 years or 10 years in this country, if there was a single leader who had their fingerprints on everything that we've been through in terms of the fascism, I'll use the word of the left, we would never want this leader anyway. This would be the person that we'd be calling a fascist. We'd say this person is a fascist and look at all the things they've done. Because lives have been ruined. I know a number of people whose lives have been ruined. But the left is a blob. And it doesn't have anybody who's responsible for all this stuff. So it becomes very difficult to attribute it to anybody. But Trump actually, if you were not watching...
But not everybody sees those things as a problem.
Well, a great majority of the country does.
And they're probably voting for Trump.
No, but if you were, Trump turns them off in other ways. But if you were to never watch the news while Trump was president, you would have not noticed anything different about the country. There'd be nothing you would have said, oh, things look pretty good in the economy and stuff like that. But all the things I'm talking about, we were all scared shitless. I remember on this show, even to say, look, I don't think that there's good evidence against Kavanaugh. I remember saying, I don't know if I can get away with saying that. I don't know what'll come down on me. Nevertheless, Tara Reid comes along and she's some kind of evil genius because she planted this story 20 years ago, by telling her mother and telling her friends or whatever. And that didn't happen. No, Tara Reid is making the whole thing up. I mean, the Avenatti and Kavanaugh's a gang rapist. I mean, you could go on and on about all the nonsense. So there is a part of me which says, yeah, the left has to be defeated. They are the fascists. We can't live this way anymore. And only through electoral defeat will we force a reckoning upon them. And I guess I'm just repeating myself, but it's easy to attribute Trump as the fascist because he's this big personality who's all this bluster. But the fascism that we've been living through is from the left, and they have to be defeated at all costs. It has to be defeated.
So,
and that's just politicians. They're all liars, right? But then we have the press, that is this dishonest fifth column. The press that hid the fact that Joe Biden was non compos mentis or not up to the job, however you want to put it. They pretended he was the best Biden ever. The press that lies about everything. So play this video. We've all heard, and you heard, Donald Trump said he wants to be a dictator for a day. He's going to be a dictator. I'm sorry. Donald Trump wants to be a dictator on day one. Have you heard this? Sounds ominous, right? He said he wants to be dictator on day one. Have you ever seen the video? Play the video.
I think I saw because you had posted it on Twitter.
This is the video. Make sure the sound's on.
Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight, you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
for?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border, and I want to drill.
That's
drill,
not
drill.
That's not.
No.
That's not retribution.
I'm going to be. He keeps. We love
He's
this guy.
smiling.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No. Other than day one, we're closing the border." And we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator. Okay?
All right.
That sounds to me like you're going.
That's it. They took that and they turned it into the most scary headline you can imagine. And the chief correspondent, Peter Baker of the New York Times, he harps on this all the time. How can you have a president who wants to be dictator on day one? And it's such a fucking lie. Now, you expect politicians to lie because they want to get elected. But journalists are supposed to take they answer to a higher authority. They're supposed to take an oath to the truth. Like doctors take an oath to do no harm. Journalists are supposed to take an oath to the truth. Could anybody, and Danny, you can join in, could anybody look at that video and say that was scary? Periel? What did he threaten to do? He said, on day one, I'm going to close the border, which he's the president. And what's the other horrible thing he's going to do? He's going to drill for oil.
Does he?
And then he said, and after that, I'm done.
Does he have the authority to drill for oil, incidentally?
I don't know, but the point
But
is
who
that
needs that answer, right?
No, the point is,
Like-
after I hear that level of dishonesty from the people who told us that Joe Biden was fine, and they're doing the same thing now by pretending that Kamala Harris is brilliant, because I guarantee you, if she loses, the next day we're going to hear all the stories pouring out of all the dumb things she said, how everybody was covering for her, how they were tutoring her on geography and basic civics, and that's why they were keeping her out of the public eye for a month, because she was doing My Fair Lady, Pygmalion training, the rain in Spain. And there is something that wells up inside of me which says, fuck these fucking liars. They are liars. Mark Halperin said, do you ever wonder how it was that nobody knew that the press covered for Roosevelt in his wheelchair? Now we know, because they did it with Joe Biden. Everything they say is a lie. Everything they say is with an agenda. We have no real way of knowing what Trump is about, because that's the filter through which we hear about Trump. Everything.
But you're still not willing to say that you, even though you don't vote, that if you did vote, you would vote for Trump.
You can't just say I don't vote. I've been saying this to you for years. Like, that's not like
it's hard. Let me add to something else. I've said it before. And when the BLM riots happened, and we were here boarding up the olive tree and checking the fire extinguishers, and my stepmother Ava was all alone upstairs, scared shitless. What did the left-wing mayor of New York City do? He told the rioters, he told the police to stand down. He took the side of the arsonists. Now, is that fascism? Of course. It is when the innocent citizen becomes a victim of the political agenda of the leadership, and you have no rights. You can't even count on the police.
Well, you've said that you don't vote in New York because it doesn't matter, but Batya seems to think New York might be in play.
No, she doesn't.
I think it matters if if Trump loses New York by 2 points or by 20 points. I think that matters in a really big way because it really sends a message. And I think he could. I mean, Lee Zeldin lost by 4 points.
Something like that, yeah.
He's a Republican. I think Trump could come within 2 points of winning New York, and I think that is significant. I don't understand how you can talk this way and not want to vote against that. It's not just that if there was a person embodying all of this on the left, that we would call them a fascist. It's that there's really literally one person who who has enough of a I don't care what people think about me personality, not only to take on all of the sort of symbolic things that bother you and your rich friends, right?
Who, me? I don't have rich friends.
Whatever. All of the,
I'm the only rich friend in my social circle.
Everything you just outlined is this is bad stuff.
Yeah.
But Trump not only stands up to that, he also puts money in the pockets of people who are struggling to feed their families. So you have a person who both can take on all of the stuff that bothers you, who are comfortable and not struggling, but feel offended at the hypocrisy, which I agree with you, it's very offensive. But he also has a plan for bringing back the American dream for the people who are our neighbors who are totally struggling. And this is amazingly united in a single person. It's really amazing. And
well, except that I don't trust him not to be a score settler. This guy is
Oh, come on.
Okay, well,
because the Democrats aren't score settlers. He never went after Hillary Clinton. He very obviously refused to be a score settler in his first term.
He had no score to settle with Hillary Clinton. She never did anything to him. He is seething mad with some righteous anger. They tried to put him in jail at 78 years old for the crime of paying off the mistress who was extorting him with his own money. They tried to put him in jail for that. He might still go to jail if he loses.
He will either have access to legal avenues to pursue grievances, which is his right, or he will not have access to them.
I do not trust this guy to
the idea that the DOJ will suddenly become capture to a Republican is so ridiculous because of the point I was trying to make before. Yes, it is in the nature of power to hold on to itself, to expand itself, to abuse itself. Yeah. But our institutions are all peopled with people who have Ivy League degrees from woke manufacturing factories.
Okay, I'm not predicting it.
And they have proven very, very, very adept, including Republican and conservative institutions, have proven unbelievably adept at standing up to Donald Trump's attempts to abuse power.
Yes.
And they have proven to be the handmaidens of the Democrats' attempts to abuse power.
This is why the press is such a pernicious fog here.
We're agreeing. The question is, how could you not stand up for your values and vote for the person who's going to represent them?
Because Bill Barr, who was Trump's henchman, who was a total, villain, it turns out that he knew all along that the Hunter Biden laptop was real, and he kept it quiet because legal ethics required him to keep it quiet. We also know that when Trump tried to spin all these harebrained schemes about not certifying the election. And by the way, we should talk about that in terms of his character. Bill Barr didn't want any part of it. But we also know now that Trump's like, well, I'm not making that mistake again. I'm going to get loyalists in.
You're going to not vote for a person on some theoretical fantasy of what he might do. But you know that if he loses, they're literally going to put him in prison on this bullshit. How could you do that? I mean, just from a person to a person.
Yeah. Well, I will also say on the other side.
No, respond to that.
No, I will. I will say on the other side, but just as the flip side of the point, I'll say that although I worry about Trump's authoritarian impulses in score settling in the Justice Department, as opposed to the left, Trump has no designs on us or our lives. Trump doesn't want to make sure that we say the right thing. He doesn't want to make sure that we, he doesn't want us Me Too'd. He's never displayed any eagerness to be involved in people's lives. During COVID, it's like, I don't want to do it. It's like, where the left, all they want to do is monitor us, catch us, ostracize us, fire us, bring us to HR, make sure that we, literally have legal requirements of what pronouns you can use. All this well-intentioned stuff that has made us miserable. How could I not want to vote for the guy? Because it really
vote at all.
It becomes down to the risk with him is small.
But the risk, no, you're not responding to my question. You're not. You're not.
Ask it again.
You're not.
I think I am, but
you are going to not vote for him on the risk that he might theoretically do what they have already done to him and are certainly going to keep doing if he loses.
Yes, I was about to answer that.
Okay.
I'm saying the risk of Trump is not the risk that the press is trying to feed us. But I do see the risk of having an erratic president whose judgment I don't trust, that something awful can happen. It's a small risk, but it's a catastrophic risk. With her, I think it's almost a certainty she's going to be awful, but she's going to have a generic, stable group of Democrats around her. She doesn't think she knows anything, and we know how bad that can be.
You're not answering my question.
And so it's a question of taking a small risk, but that's a catastrophic risk.
No, the catastrophe
or a bigger
happened.
risk, but that's not so bad.
No, but he's talking about
happened.
a different catastrophe. What particular catastrophe are you thinking?
What could be worse than October 7th, which would not have happened under Trump?
You don't know it wouldn't have happened under Trump.
We could be reasonably certain that it was much more likely to happen under a weak Democratic government than under Trump.
I think that Ukraine, you can make that argument.
Wait, why? I want to hear why.
I don't see why the Hamas would care about Trump.
I mean, first of all, Iran was broke, so they couldn't have afforded it.
Well, that may be true.
That is true. That is a fact.
Well, but Iran didn't.
Like literally, the biggest catastrophe already happened. Like that you have created. This is an excuse, and I'm shocked that you let yourself get away with this because it's so weak. Noam, it is so
If
beneath
Noam
you.
were forced to vote, I would bet good money that he would vote for Trump.
Wait, I want to hear the rest
He's not being
of this.
forced to vote, so he's probably not going to vote.
I want to hear the rest of this answer. So Iran would have been broke.
Iran was broke under Trump, and then Biden refilled all the coffers. So they couldn't have even funded the whole October 7th thing because they didn't have the money to do it. And Trump was incredibly hawkish on Iran.
We just don't know if that's true. I'm a hawk. But I have to be honest with myself. I think Hezbollah,
Ukraine,
Hezbollah gets a lot of money from Iran.
You admit about Ukraine that it probably would not have happened under Trump, right?
I'm much
500,000 dead young men is a catastrophe. These catastrophes all just happened, but because they didn't happen to you, although October 7th did happen to you, you're somehow like acting like that there's some unthinkable thing that could come out that somehow he wouldn't be able to handle. It's that exact blob that's going to be running the country under Kamala, that was running it under Biden, that has resulted in like the just absolute disaster that the country is right now. All those people are going to be there. Alejandro Mayorkas, Tony freaking Blinken, like telling Israel every single second,
lousy guitar player,
every single second, like you can't do this, you can't. Do you know Hirsch Goldberg Poland would be alive if not for all of them? Kamala Harris saying, "Don't go into Rafah." Like it's unconscionable to act like the catastrophe has not already visited upon us.
I'm not as comfortable with you saying things so definitively. He wouldn't be alive, but I totally accept that there's a good likelihood that if they got into Rafah earlier, they would have saved this boy. But they could have still put a bullet in his head when they got close to him, 4 months earlier. I don't know.
And somebody asked how Trump would be on Israel, and on Ukraine, different than Kamala. So
no, I asked on Israel and on the anti-Semitism.
Oh, and on the anti-Semitism. Is this now a good time to move into that?
Anti-Semitism? Well, let me start.
In Israel.
Yeah, well, let me start with this thing in Chicago. This guy got shot in Chicago.
Yes.
And so this is the mayor of Chicago back in October 16th.
In the United States, sorry.
Excuse me. October 16th, 23. There was a Palestinian boy. Was he stabbed or was he shot? I don't know. But the mayor tweets out, "I'm devastated by the murder of a 6-year-old Palestinian American, Wadia al-Fayumi, and the attempted murder of his mother in Plainfield, Illinois. This despicable hate crime," he puts it in bold, "is a shameful reminder of the destructive role of Islamophobia." Now, a few days ago, a visibly Orthodox Jew was shot by someone who was yelling Allahu Akbar. And apparently, if I have the story right, nobody ever mentioned that this was obviously
well, Brandon Johnson, the mayor, he sort of All Lives Mattered this attack in his tweet about it, and
but
refused
they caught the Allahu Akbar on a Ring camera or something like that. It was not disclosed by the government, as I think I understood it. And his tweet about it was, "Our heartfelt thoughts and prayers are with the victim and his loved ones from this weekend's shooting incident that took place in Rogers Park." He never mentions anything about
the victim of the shooting was the terrorist, was the Allahu Akbar, no? Because he's the guy the police shot.
No,
he got into a shootout.
It was the guy who was shot I think he was shot in the shoulder. The point is, this is infuriating.
Yeah.
Sidi Mohammed Abdullahi, 22, from Mauritania, crossed into San Diego in March, was screened by border agents who quickly released him into the U.S.
Oh, he's an illegal immigrant on top of it?
Yes, federal investigators believe that he was specifically targeting Jews in an anti-Semitic attack when he ambushed a 39-year-old Orthodox Jewish man in the city's West Ridge neighborhoods, which is home to several
West
synagogues.
Rogers, yeah. He's the nephew of a rabbi I know very well.
The gunman then reportedly caught on video shouting Allahu Akbar before opening fire on police.
So there's pressure. It's real. Again, not with the fingerprints of any leader. There's pressure in the left everywhere you look to sweep under the rug anything about anti-Semitism, to look the other way at it. They revel in it on campuses. The university presidents, we've all lived through this stuff. They won't even say if they're uncomfortable with the fact that people are advocating genocide against
What about what's
Jews.
going on in Colombia?
And Trump stands against all of that. The right stands against all of that.
Is there
Can't
any?
deny it. She's
Is there
looking
any?
like, I know what she's thinking.
Is there any doubt in anyone's mind?
I'm thinking, no.
Like,
that-
there's this fucking idiot saying he can't support this guy when he's making
Yeah,
all
everything you say is very pro-Trump, except for the occasional. Well, but maybe he would do something.
Wait a
It's not
second.
pro-Trump. It's anti-left.
Wait a second.
No,
Wait
you
a
have
second.
not
Wait,
yet-
you just said Trump stands against.
You don't know why you won't vote for him yet. Nothing you've said is a reason not to. Like
Trump cozies up
I don't
to
trust
people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens
Wait,
Candace Owens was banned from the campaign.
now.
No.
I don't ever remember Trump and Candace.
These people are all, mingling together, right? I mean, they are.
No.
No?
She's been banned from. She was.
And what about Tucker Carlson? And what about Kanye West and all?
Kanye West is nowhere to be. He and Trump were friends for a long time, and then when Kanye came out as an anti-Semite, that friendship ended.
Look, we all know that if Noam were forced to vote, he would vote Trump. But he's
No,
taking
we
the.
don't know that.
I know.
You
that,
are so right.
I think that'd be
We've already won.
very, very unlikely that he would vote for Kamala if forced to. Maybe he would go third party. But it's inconceivable to me that he would vote for Kamala if forced to vote. Lucky for him, we don't have laws that force you to vote, as some countries do, by the way.
I can't stand her.
I want Batya to finish explaining this part. So go on. So
Well, okay. This gets back to Bibi, who I think is very misunderstood as a warmonger. He's actually incredibly risk averse to a fault. I think because he doesn't distinguish between Israeli soldiers and Israeli civilians. Every soldier who dies, he thinks of as. So he's always very reticent to go into war. And if you look at how they prosecuted this war in Gaza, it's been by sort of stops and starts. I think he felt very much the pressure of the Biden administration at every turn, but also his own sort of risk-averse nature meant that they were always holding back, always waiting. It took them 3 weeks to do the initial incursion. And I think that, so that his nature coupled with the horrible way that the Biden administration has sort of given with one hand and taken with the other hand, trying to win this election, appease the far left. I think if Trump came into office, what he would say to Bibi is, I'm giving you a month. You could do whatever you want. I'm going to give you full diplomatic cover. I'm going to give you whatever weapons you want. And then I want this to be over because Trump also hates war.
Doesn't he also hate
Hates
Netanyahu?
war.
No.
No, he doesn't hate Netanyahu. He was pissed at him because Netanyahu congratulated Biden for winning the election. So for a while he held on to that, but they've since met. I think that's what he would do. He would be like, I'm going to give you a month, do it, and then I want this to be over.
There's something constitutionally about me which sees a president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, taunting the North Korean dictator as Rocket Man. And I just can't help it.
Yeah, he offends your elite sensibilities.
No, it's not my elite sensibilities.
It is your elite sensibilities, and you're willing to tell your working class neighbors, you don't get to own a home because I don't like that he tweeted Rocket Man. Like, these are like orders of magnitude.
It's an example of the fact that he's fundamentally irresponsible. And that's also the same. Listen, all the people around him, John Bolton, Tillerson, Kelly, McMaster, Mattis, all these guys, I can't think of Esper, none of them said he was senile. None of them actually, maybe a couple of them said that he's not that smart, but he doesn't read. But the main thing they say about him is that he's erratic.
They hate him because they couldn't roll him. They hate him because they couldn't control him. That's what you're saying. You cannot control this man.
I don't actually, in my gut, believe that's the reason.
I heard he loves to play Candy Crush.
Really?
No.
What it now?
I don't believe these people are seasoned, and I don't know that they all even agree with each other on policy. These people are patriots. They took the job with Trump because they had some compatible opinions about things.
Trump
And
came
they
into
don't
a party
trust him.
that was pro-war, socially conservative, and pro-free trade. Those were the three legs of the Reagan GOP. And he said, we're going to be anti-war, anti-free trade, and I'm not a conservative, I'm a social moderate. So, I mean, the entire GOP elite class hates him.
Okay, but now say some things that you don't like about him.
About Trump?
Yeah, like all else being equal, like fair enough. But do you concede that like any of these things are true? Like
I don't think he covered himself in glory on January 6th. I mean, I don't have no problem saying that.
Is that the worst you could say about him on January 6th?
What do you mean? What should I say? I don't think he behaved well.
How on a scale of
1 to not behaving like really?
How bad was it?
I think it could have been much, much worse. But I think it was bad. It was embarrassing, and it was it was shameful for our nation.
And what does that say about his character?
I think his character came out on January 21st when he walked out despite thinking that he had won the election.
He had no choice.
Whatever. He left peacefully. Like that's extremely important to all the people who say he'll never leave. He left despite thinking that he won.
He has to leave. He's not president.
I don't like that he made fun of that disabled reporter. There's a part of me that's kind of like can't get past that. I also wish he was more dignified, but I think that the fact that he isn't is a fundamental component of all of the things that I like about him.
On January 20th, whenever it was, noon or whatever time, he was no longer president. He really, he could stay and scream like Al Pacino and Scarface, but no one's going to listen to him. There was really no option. It showed no character that he left. And the truth is that the worst part, I think January 6th is horrible. I actually don't think he incited violence. But the worst part, and if you spend any time reading it, if you read the testimony of all the people, Ivanka, Jared, what was his chief of staff's name at the time? Whatever it was. Sean Hannity, everybody urging him to intervene once the violent riot started. And as Arnold says, he just sipped a Diet Coke, figuratively got out the popcorn and enjoyed it all because of the ego. I'm presuming because of the tremendous ego rush it gave him.
Do you think that he raped Ivana?
Shut up.
Why? That's true. Don't shut up.
It's like a sidetrack for some gossip Page 6 thing right now. This is really...
I love that you did that.
It's really a serious indictment of a person's character.
I think I think that the real question about January 6th is not, his character. Yes, major character flaws were on exhibit on January 6th. I think the more important question is, why do so many Americans not care about that? And it's because if we were in a better place,
The reasons I already said.
if we hadn't spent 60 years being totally comfortable that we were getting rich and fat and they were struggling, they would have more room in their lives and more room in their psyches to be judging based on
So
character.
there's another reason.
That's not why.
Can I tell you about the Trump rally I went to?
Oh, okay.
I forgot to tell you.
Did you go to that?
Not in Madison Square Garden. I got invited by a journalist who was going to, I told you, right? By a journalist who was going to cover the Trump rally at Penn State University on Sunday. No, on Saturday. And I said, what the hell, I'll go. It was a private plane. So I went to the rally. It was the most milquetoast, boring thing I have ever sat through. They didn't even need security. That's how polite and tame these people were. They were like closing their eyes and nodding their head for prayers for Jesus. And Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke.
Oh, God.
And
I love her.
God.
she is a very talented political performer.
Love her.
She was very good. She didn't say anything you would have disagreed with. She didn't mention the space lasers.
Oh,
But anyway,
my
But
God.
anyway, this is what I found. If you looked at these people, instantly you could tell that they would not be comfortable in any social circles that you would hang out.
What, the Jews?
No, they know.
Aw,
I'm saying they're overweight. They're dressed funny. They're working class. They're Christian. They wear their Christianity on their sleeve, and
And they love Jews, by the way.
And
These
they
are the
love-
people who love the Jews.
and they know, as it just came out now, they know how much the elite that she refers to, they know how much they're looked down upon. More than the wages, and they're right.
Look, I don't like that.
and
I don't like
nobody-
that at all.
we talked
And-
about this
wait,
last time.
And nobody wants to vote for somebody who hates them.
Listen,
This
I
is the
appreciate
same
that.
reason that it's been so hard for conservatives to break into the black community, even when those policies probably are better for many, many black people, because they don't trust them.
Well, we discussed this last time, and I said this last time. I think this notion that the elites, however you define elites, hate these people is
I
exaggerated.
said look down on them.
I'm not even sure if that's true.
Oh, it's
I
absolutely
think
true.
listen, I spent 7 days this summer in South Dakota, okay? And I can tell you with a great amount of certainty that that is correct. I mean, you can see it everywhere just walking down the street. But I think
Well, what can you see everywhere? That they're being looked down upon, or that they
Yeah.
think they're being looked down upon?
both.
Well, but
Like that- like if
you
you-
hang out with, college-educated Upper West Siders. Do they express
tolerate her.
contempt for these people, or
First of all, I don't only
I don't
hang
really-
out
but
with college-educated Upper West
well, whoever you're
Siders.
hanging out with? I just don't hear people saying.
Watch has had enough for you.
I just don't hear. Look, I hang out with Ivy League educated people that are in the the upper middle class and above, and I don't hear people scoffing and.
No, but you don't have
And-
to hear people scoffing. I just
I don't
wanna-
know where
They cling to their guns and their religion.
Well, the
And- and
guns,
there's a
yes,
gap.
people-
Every
people
single
have-
Democrat gets caught on a hot mic saying something disparaging about these people.
I just want to say one thing, and I think it's important. I think that one of the reasons that the people like Donald Trump so much is for the same reason that the people like John Gotti so much.
Who's John Gotti?
The gangster.
The mafioso.
Oh, the mafioso.
I think that there is something about this like larger than life personality that, as Noam pointed out, is, very comfortable interacting with, everyday people, that they feel like he's for them.
But also, the left made a martyr out of him by attacking him just so relentlessly in such specious ways again and again and again. And that's why, when they say and then they shot him, obviously nobody on the left shot him. I don't even really think, even the Hitler stuff, I'm not even sure that rises to the level of incitement to violence. But it did feel symbolically like they are trying to destroy him, to eliminate him, to put him in prison. You martyr a person when you do that. You make them larger than life. You turn them into a symbol of the very contempt that the elites have for average Americans.
But how does this contempt that I disagree with manifest itself?
First of all, in policy, right? So, NAFTA, shipping 5 million of their good paying jobs overseas and destroying their communities. Defunding vocational training, which Barack Obama did, saying, you know what, you either go to college or forget it. You can just, we're going to import millions and millions of people to do like masculine jobs that used to have a lot of dignity in America and now don't, because they're predominantly done by illegal immigrants for poverty wages. Like, that is saying to working class people, you do not count, you do not matter. Only people who go to college are going to have access to the American dream. Everyone's going to go to college.
Well, it might be misguided, but it's not contempt to say we want everyone to go to college, even though that's probably not a good policy. But if he's saying to them...
It's saying it's not a respectable thing to work as a working class person.
Well,
that's not deserving of dignity.
Are you pro-union?
Very.
Can I play you one video before you go to get your read on it?
Sure.
Can you put up that video, Danny, the YouTube one about this is the...
You never hear people disparaging MAGA voters? Really?
Well, MAGA voters, yes, but not working class people as working class people.
Right.
They disagree with their choice of candidate, as they're entitled to disagree.
This is the head of the port union.
Oh, yeah. This guy makes $750K a year.
And this was related to the inflation that we suffered because they didn't want to have the ports running 24 hours a day. And of course, Biden didn't want to ruffle the feathers of the union he could have put in the military to get the ports running 24 hours a day. There's a lot of stuff that Biden could have done that he didn't do because he didn't want to ruffle the feathers of organized labor. And this is the same guy who didn't want easy pass. Go ahead, play this guy.
In the United States comes on a ship.
Everything hold on, stop there. You missed the beginning of it. It says everything in the United States comes on a ship. Go ahead.
Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody.
That's the unions. They're threatening to cripple the United States of America unless they give him this triple wage or whatever it is. And his big demand is no automation. No automation. I don't understand. I mean, how could you be behind these people?
First of all, I find that incredibly sexy. I think Sean O'Brien is the hottest man in America. I think he should be on the cover of like People magazines.
This is why everybody all the women love James Gandolfini in The Sopranos.
That
was a great answer.
Yeah, that's it. That's the best answer. You're done.
I think we got our viral clip.
He's doing his job, which is to represent.
You like a good alpha male, don't you?
Every woman likes a good alpha male.
Go ahead.
Like,
that's why Karen dated Henry Hill.
Go ahead.
It is his job to represent his workers, to have leverage, right? That's his job. And the idea that a single worker should be able to compete against multinational conglomerates is just, it's un-American to me. I think that, it could go too far. He's actually wrong about all of that. Steel, because of Trump's tariffs on steel, most of the steel that is now consumed in America is produced in America. So we don't actually need the longshoremen, I think fighting against automation is a totally reasonable thing for people to band together and do. You're going to see how quick people in the knowledge industry get legislation around AI when they realize it's coming for their jobs, because that's what we do, right? How quick the doctors are going to organize themselves to make sure that they don't get laid off to this stuff. So why can't these people do it just because they don't have that kind of clout? They should have clout. Everyone should have clout.
No,
His clout comes in the form of a full arm tattoo sleeve.
It's
it does.
All right, ladies. It's totally predictable. given what unions are and how and what their leverage is, that they always descend into this kind of strong arm tactics. What disturbs me is when people like us pretend that they're the good guys. They're the bad guys. There was a time when unions did great things because people were dying in factories and working 20. Right now, the OSHA standards, whatever they are, this was a union's wet dream 30 years ago. The safety standards that government imposes now are far beyond anything that any union could have ever dreamed of.
They
shut businesses
when
down.
your UPS guy shows up and he has a big smile on his face and it's the same guy every day and he's happy to be at work and he's making $125,000 a year and his kids are in a good school and he owns a home.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't that make you happy?
Yep. The FedEx,
that doesn't exist without a union.
The FedEx guy who's not unionized is friendlier and more reliable and cheaper.
Is he an illegal immigrant?
I don't know. But FedEx is not unionized. All the best companies are not unionized. Tesla's not unionized. All the best companies are not unionized.
Let's not use Elon Musk as an example of anything.
But it's an amazing accomplishment.
Actually, people at Tesla are very happy.
Could he have done it if he had a union? I can barely run a comedy cellar in Vegas with a union.
I'll end with this because I agree with you about it to a certain extent. Bernie Sanders hauled Howard Schultz in front of a Senate committee hearing.
Starbucks, yeah.
The owner of Starbucks, the CEO of Starbucks. I don't think he's the CEO anymore.
Not anymore. He was.
He was the CEO of Starbucks, and Starbucks has unbelievable benefits. So they came into an industry where people were making minimum wage. They said, you know what, we're going to starting salary $17 an hour, wherever you are in Starbucks. They give full benefits. They pay for college. They will pay for your trans surgery if you want to transition. Like, this is just an unbelievable company to work for. They hire for management from within the company. There's it's just a great first job, as Howard Schultz said. So Bernie Sanders hires him, hauls him in front of the Senate because he is union busting. He doesn't want unions in his shop because his argument is, I already give them really good. And I actually interviewed some of these guys who were like trying to unionize at Buffalo Starbucks. And I was like, well, what do you guys want? Like, you're already getting paid so much more than like at the next door coffee shop. It actually raised the wages industry wide because now there was this new standard being set. You have these great benefits, and they were like, well, what we want is a seat at the table. And these were all like college kids. Like, it was a college town. They were college kids who were like, this is their side hustle. Anyway, so Bernie Sanders is like berating him for union busting, and Howard Schultz just looked at him and he went, Senator Sanders, when you were trying to push a minimum wage bill, a national minimum wage bill, you were only asking for $15 an hour. My people are starting at 17. What do you want from me? And the truth was, the reason Bernie was mad, and I love Bernie, but the reason he was mad was because Howard Schultz had chosen to do that. He had not been forced to do it by the government. I think that that's a real flaw in the progressive leftist way of thinking. They would rather you be forced to do something that makes your workers less happy than voluntarily do it, without them having a seat at the table, what have you. So certainly there are examples like that everywhere, but
you don't even know the half of it. It's unions, wages, and safety stuff. This is not the problem. What unions do is they shut down management's ability to service its customers well. They find rules.
I think even worse than that.
Here. You can't ask me to do this. You can't ask me to plug that in.
I think even worse than that.
In Vegas now, if a customer is making noise at the table during the show, we're not allowed to ask the server, can you tell that guy to keep it down?
So when I was writing my book, Second Class, I was interviewing a lot of working class people, some unionized, some not, mostly not unionized. Only 6% of the private sector is unionized, even though unions right now have a historic high in terms of like popularity. It's almost 70%. People love unions. They just don't join them. So I was trying to understand, why don't they join them? And a lot of people would give this reason of they felt that it was anti-meritocratic. So in a union, there's levels. You come in at a level, you work to the next level, if you're the best person at this level, you can't get a raise. You can't have your employer recognize your hard work and be like, I want to reward this person because they are the smartest person on the team. Everyone is sort of kind of in that level, which both incentivizes the worst people at the bottom to not work very hard, but also it's a sort of downward pressure on the people at the top. So people who are very smart and very talented, people like us, like, we really rebel at that idea because we're used to being rewarded for our unique talents. People who are average need these protections because a lot of jobs do not need excellence. They just need competence. And
I think
people
stand-up
who are...
comedy is a fine example. It's just such a job. competence. But anyhow, that's my opinion. No one might disagree.
Hilarious. I have to
You
go.
gotta
But
go.
that's a great.
I don't see the world that
great,
way. But also,
great thing to end on.
and that list of fascist left stuff, we didn't talk about, getting between, maybe we did getting between parents
And children.
And children.
Yeah, horrible.
The trans stuff and all kinds
Horrible.
of stuff.
We also didn't talk about anti-Semitism.
We didn't. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you,
Noam, do the right
Batya.
thing.
Who's going to win, Batya? Trump's going to win?
I'm really hoping whoever wins, they will win by big. I honestly would rather Kamala win by a landslide than it be super, super close. I'm really just...
Because you can't expect Trump to accept.
No, both. I think she's going to also. Same thing with her.
No, she
I think honestly, this is my honest opinion. No matter who wins, this country is going to be okay. Like, we're going to be fine. Whoever wins, this is going to be the greatest country on earth, and we're going to be totally, totally fine. I'm just hoping that whoever wins with a margin that is recognizable to the other side, because otherwise it's going to,
I
That's
agree
a very
Well, but
patriotic
what
thing to
is-
say.
She's got to go. Yeah.
Is it fair to say that if Trump loses, that could be dangerous? If he loses and he doesn't lose by a landslide?
I don't think so.
that
I don't
his
think
pe-
more dangerous than if the left loses.
If he wins, will there be violence in New York?
If you compare January 6th to the 2020 George Floyd riots, hundreds of people died there. I mean, nobody was armed at January 6th. One side of the political aisle is actually much more violent, and thank God it's the side that doesn't have
Do you
guns.
think January 6th would have happened if not for the George Floyd riots? Do you think that vibe that we'd gotten kind of used to violence and it was in everybody's mind?
I really don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is that if somebody, God forbid, took a shot at Kamala Harris or at Joe Biden, which nobody would, but if they did, the left would be out en masse destroying cities, people would be dying. And after Donald Trump was almost killed twice, there was not one riot, not one gunshot, nothing. And everybody acts like the right is violent because they are the gun owners, but it is the left who is actually responsible for the vast majority of political violence in this country. There's like a real misconception around that.
I do know that I don't worry about her winning, at least in New York, in terms of violence, but I am worried that if he wins, that there might be uprisings on the street of some kind. I worry about it. I'm not predicting it, but in 2020, we were sure there was going to be riots if he won.
The hell's that? Is it?
Well, it's
motorcycle?
an automobile, one of these union products. All right.
Yes, Dan.
Batya, we will see who wins.
We will indeed.
You're not making any predictions.
She's predicting Trump.
It sounds like at the beginning of the podcast, I got the vibe that you thought that Trump was just going to win by a landslide. Because you were saying, well, like, all these people we don't think are going to vote for Trump, like minorities, like, people of color, that we're undercounting them.
I mean, like it's the like Gen Z male vote. Like, these are people who like often just kind of like end up staying home and like jerking off or playing video games, right? Like, so they're not necessarily reliable voters. I think they like him a lot. I think Trump is very popular in the Black community right now with men, but I don't know how many of those people are going to show up.
Thank you very much, Batya Ungar-Sargon.
Thank you for having me, guys.
We'll see how far gone Sargon is.
That was terrible.
Good night, everybody.